Daf Yomi, Tractate Shevuos, page 10. And thought about the opening song for this Daf Yomi shir. I had some consideration of the opening song, like the theme song, like in a TV show, like Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi, down, 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 down. Like a little jingle, you know? Maybe I'll do it once in a while just to keep things exciting. That being said, Shavuot, for the Sephardic folk, Shavuot 10, Amud Aleph, with the words V'itakush. Sirei ha'galim l'sir sh'chadoshim, Ma'aseh of Shoidish Mnes the Kodesh Mechapri, Avsir Golim Mnes the Kodesh Mechapri. And through this additional the goats of the festivals are juxtaposed with the goats of the new moons, indicating that just as the goats of the new moons atone for a case involving sacrificial food, meaning where a ritually pure person partook of ritually impure sacrificial food, so too the goats of the festivals atone for a similar case involving sacrificial food. This is very apropos because our Parsha, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's mentioned this, I would imagine I'm not, that we just read on Shabbos about Parshas Achrei Mos, Leviticus 16, about the two goats, and we're encountering it in Daf Yomi. And this happens quite a bit where the material, the content of the Daf matches what's going on. So it's some good proof or some good demonstration that that's some kind of heavenly ordained thing. And that's why one of the reasons why I like Daf Yomi a lot. It's not just learning, but it's actually a memory technology. It's a memory piece. It's a memory life meditation that not only did you learn some material each day, but you actually connected with what the goings on of something that's much bigger than yourself, and it's actually in real time. That being said, let's continue. Sacrificial food, meaning where a ritually impure person partake of ritually pure sacrificial food. San Francisco, Santa Fe, sacrificial food. Those things all came up. San Francisco, Santa Fe, and sacrificial food came up. Santa Fe in a different situation, but same Rosh Tables. And if you would say, let the goats of the festivals atone for that which the goats of the new moon are sacrificed, that is not possible. Didn't we say above that the verse states with regard to the goat of the new moon, and he gave it to you to bear the sin of the congregation, which indicates that it bears, meaning it atones for that sin, but another does not bear that sin. And if you would say, let the goats of the festivals atone for that which the goat of Yom Kippur is brought, that is not possible. Didn't we say above that the verse states with regard to the goat of Yom Kippur, Aaron shall bring atonement upon its corners once a year, Exodus 30:10. The emphasis on once a year teaches that this atonement for this case should be only once a year. Amay Mechapri, the Gemara explains, it must be that the goats of the festivals atone for cases of defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods in which one did not have awareness, neither at the beginning nor at the end, because if not, for what other matter involving sacrificial foods could they atone? Al sheyesh b'yediyah matchila v'yesh b'yediyah b'sof, hay bar korbanu. Al sheyesh b'yediyah matchila v'ein b'yediyah b'sof, hay sa'iran aseh b'fnim. ויום הכיפורים תולה. אי על שאין בה ידיעה בתחילה, אבל יש בה ידיעה בסוף, השעיר הנעשה בחוץ, ויום הכיפורים מכפר. If you say, they atone for cases in which one had awareness at the beginning and had awareness at the end, then one can counter that he is liable to bring an offering to atone for his transgression, and therefore the goats of the festivals will not atone for him. If you say that they atone for cases in which one had awareness at the beginning but did not have awareness at the end, then one can counter that the goat whose blood presentation is performed inside the sanctuary and Yom Kippur itself suspends any punishment that he deserves until he becomes aware of his transgression. If you say they atone for cases in which one did not have awareness at the beginning but did have awareness at the end, then one can counter that the goat whose blood presentation is performed outside the sanctuary atones. Al korchach einu mechaber ela al she'ein b'yediah lo b'tchila v'lo b'sof. Perforce, they atone only for cases in which one did not have awareness neither at the beginning nor at the end. Rabbi Meir Omer kol ha'seirim kabe'osan shaveh kule. The Mishnah teaches that Rabbi Meir says the atonement effected by all the goats offered as part of the additional offerings, meaning those of the new moons, festivals, and Yom Kippur, is the same. They all atone for various cases of the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods. Amar Rabbi Chama bar Rabbi Chanino, my time in Rabbi Meir, because Hirus Usir, Hukshu Kol HaSeirim Ze Lazeh, Vav Mosif Al Inyan Rishon. Rabbi Chama bar Rabbi Chanina said, what is the reasoning of Rabbi Meir? With regard to the goat of the festivals, Numbers chapter 28 and 9, the verse could have simply stated a goat, but instead it states, and a goat, which teaches that all the goats are juxtaposed. And this one with that one, as the use of the term and teaches that the second matter adds to the first matter, and that all the goats effect a similar atonement as the first one listed, that of the new moon. The Gemara questions this interpretation. Initially it enters your mind to explain that the atonement effected by each and every one of the goats of the festivals is derived from the atonement effected by the goat adjacent to it, meaning the one mentioned in the passage immediately preceding it, the atonement effected by the Passover goat from the atonement effected by the goat of the new moon, and the atonement effected by the Shevuos goat from the atonement effected by the Passover goat, and so forth. But this is difficult, as doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say, with regard to the entire Torah, one derives a halakha derived via a juxtaposition from a halakha derived via a juxtaposition, except for halachot concerning consecrated matters, where one does not derive a halakha derived via a juxtaposition from a halakha derived via a juxtaposition. The Gemara answers this is not difficult because actually the atonement effected by all the goats is derived directly from the atonement effected by the first goat, meaning the goat of the new moon. Tina Yom Kippurim. The Gemara asks, Rabbi Chama bar Hanina's explanation works out well for all the goats with regard to which it is written and a goat. But from where do we derive that the goats of Shavuot and Yom Kippur atone for, as with regard to them it is not written and a goat, simply a goat? Ela Amar Rav Yonah Amar Kra Eile Tasu Lashem B'Moadechem Hukshu Hamoadim Kulan Zelazeh Feresh Chodesh Lav Moedu. Rather, Rabbi Yonah says, wow, we haven't had Rabbi Yonah in a long time, if we ever did. Yeah, check out last time Rabbi Yonah showed up. Rabbi Yonah says, the verse states at the end of the passage detailing the goats of the festivals, these shall you offer to the Lord on your festivals. Numbers 29:39. With this verse, all the goats of the festivals are juxtaposed, this one with that one, which indicates that they all atone for the same sins. The Gemara challenges, but the new moon is not regarded as a festival. Ivra Rosh Chodesh Nam Yikri Moyed Kedam Rabbaye Tammuz Dehahi Shata Maloi Malyuho Dichsiv Kara Alai Moed Lishbor Bechurai. The Gemara refutes this. In truth, the new moon is also called a festival. In accordance with what Abaye says with regard to a different issue, as Abaye says with regard to the month of Tammuz in that year, during which the Jewish people sinned by accepting the slanderous report of the spies about Eretz Israel, the court made it a full month of 30 days. As it is written, he proclaimed a festival to crush my young men. Lamentations 1:15. Abaye understands the verse to mean that by extending the month of Tammuz by an extra day, by proclaiming that the 30th day should be celebrated as a new moon, in addition to the first day of the following month, it emerged that the acceptance of the spies' report occurred on the 9th of Av. Very interesting. Not on the 8th, thereby defining the 9th of Av as an ominous day for the Jewish people. From Abaye's explanation, it is apparent that the new moon is also called a festival. Wow, this ties into the PL 89. This is why Tammuz has to be made 30 days. A full 40 days, it would have been Okay, from Abaye's explanation, it's apparent that the new moon is also called a festival. The Gemara continues to analyze Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yochanan says that even though he holds that all the goats offered as part of the additional offerings effect atonement for the same sin, Rabbi Meir concedes with regard to the goat whose blood presentation is performed inside the sanctuary on Yom Kippur, that it does not atone their atonement, meaning it does not atone for the sins that they atone for, and they do not atone its atonement. They do not atone its atonement? Okay. Who einu mechaber chaberos and kaporachas mechaber einu mechaber shtei avaros einu mechaber kaberosoi Amar kra achas bashono kaparazo lo titere la achas bashana. He elaborates, it does not atone their atonement because it's like a trick, it's like a twisted tongue twister. Atone their atonement. It's like a mind bender. It does not atone their atonement. Because as the Gemara derived from the verse, Aaron shall bring atonement upon its corners once a year. Exodus 30:10. The internal goat affects one atonement for only one case, but cannot affect two atonements for two different cases. And they do not atone its atonement because, as the Gemara explained, the verse states, Aaron shall bring atonement upon its corners once a year. The emphasis on the phrase once a year teaches that this atonement for the specific case that it atones for should be only once a year. Tanya Namihachi. The more adds that this qualification of Rabbi Meir's opinion is also indicated by that which is taught in the Brisa. Tanya Namihachi. We also learn in the Brisa that supports this. Al she'ein ba yediyah v'lo b'tchila v'lo b'sov. Al she'ein ba yediyah b'tchila al yesh ba yediyah b'sov v'al tahor she'eino ela hatameh v'yired hagalim v'sirin rosh chodashim v'soyer nasi b'chutz mechaprin divrei meir. The Gemara adds, right, we also writes that for cases of the defiling of the temple in which one did not have awareness, neither at the beginning nor at the end, and for cases in which one did not have awareness at the beginning but did have awareness at the end, and for a ritually pure person who partook of ritually impure sacrificial food, the goats of the festivals and the goats of the new moons, and the goat whose blood presentation is performed outside the sanctuary atone. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. The ilu sa'ir nasivnim shayre nami shayre. The Gemara notes, but in delineating which offerings atone, Rabbi Meir omitted the goat whose blood presentation is performed inside the sanctuary. Furthermore, when delineating their atonement, meaning what cases they atone for, he also omitted it, meaning that he did not mention the cases that the internal goat atones for, which are the cases in which one had awareness at the beginning, but did not have awareness at the end. Evidently, the atonement of the internal goat is substantially different from the atonement of the other goats. Haya Rabbi Shimon Omer Sirei Rosh Chodashim Mechaprin Al Torah She'achal Es Hatameh Kulo. It's a kind of a minor point, but I wonder why the Gemara sometimes says Kulo and this is Vichule. Kule and Vichule. I don't think anyone ever has to think that, but I'm wondering myself why. The Mishnah teaches Rabbi Shimon would say the goats of the new moons atone for a ritually pure person who unwittingly partook of ritually impure sacrificial food, and for the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods. The goats of the festivals atone for cases in which one did not have awareness, neither at the beginning nor at the end, and the goats of the additional offerings of Yom Kippur atone for cases in which one did not have awareness at the beginning but did have awareness at the end. B'shlom Rosh Chodashim lo mechapri ad ragolim di'avar kra avon echad hu noseh ve'enu noseh shnei avonos el ad ragolim nichapru ad Rosh Chodashim Amar kra oisa noseh avon ve'en achar noseh avon. The Gemara challenges, granted the goats of the new moons do not atone for that which the goats of the festival atone, as the verse states, with regard to the goat of the new moon, and he gave it to you to bear the sin of the congregation, Leviticus 10:17, which indicates that it bears, meaning it atones for, one sin but does not bear two sins. But nevertheless, let the goats of the festivals atone for that which the goats of the new moons atone. The Gemara responds, the verse states, he gave it to you. The emphasis on it teaches that it bears this sin, but no other offering bears this sin. The Gemara challenges, granted, the goat of the festivals do not atone for that which the goats of Yom Kippur atone, as the verse states with regard to the goat of Yom Kippur. Aaron shall bring atonement upon his corners once a year. Exodus 30:10. The emphasis on the phrase once a year teaches that this atonement, meaning the specific case it atones for, should be only once a year, but nevertheless, let the goats of Yom Kippur atone for that which the goats of the festivals atone. The Gemara responds, the verse states once a year, which indicates that it affects one atonement for only one case, but cannot affect two atonements for two different cases. The Gemara challenges the use of these derivations, but when it states once in this verse, it is it is with regard to the goat whose blood presentation is performed inside the sanctuary that is written. So the derivations from it should have no bearing on the discussion concerning the external goat. The Gemara answers, the verse states, Amar Kra, Milvad, and now I'll just go to the next page just to finish the idea. The verse states one goat for a sin offering aside from the sin offering of the atonements, Numbers 29:11. Now we're on top of 10b. One goat for a sin offering is referring to the external goat, and the sin offering of the atonements is referring to the internal goat. With this verse, the external goat is juxtaposed with the internal goat, and therefore the limitations imposed upon the atonement of the internal goat are also to be applied to the external goat.